20 Python interview questions that actually get asked, the mutability traps, decorators, generators, and the GIL, each one answered, then explained so you can survive the follow-up. Here's how this works. I'll say a question, you pause and answer it out loud like you're in the room, then play on and check yours against mine. We go in 4 batches. Fundamentals, how Python passes arguments, is versus double equals, and the mutable default argument trap. Data structures, dicts, sets, generators, and strings. Decorators and generators, what they really are under the sugar. And the tricky stuff, the GIL, floating point, and the late binding closure gotcha that catches almost everyone. These aren't trivia, they're the questions where a shaky answer ends the interview and a crisp one gets you the offer. Grab a coffee. First batch coming up. Pause whenever you need to actually think. Fundamentals, questions 1 through 5. Question 1, is Python pass by reference or pass by value? Pause and answer. It's neither, exactly. Python is pass by object reference, sometimes called call by assignment. The function receives a reference to the same object, so if you mutate a mutable argument in place, like appending to a list, the caller sees it. But if you rebind the name inside the function, assign it to a new object, that only changes the local name, and the caller's variable is untouched. Question 2, is versus double equals? Pause. Double equals compares values, whether two objects are equal. Is compares identity, whether they're literally the same object in memory. The catch, in CPython, small integers from -5 to 256 and some short strings are interned, so is can look true by accident. Never rely on that, use double equals for value checks and is only for none. Question 3, the classic, what's wrong with def f, x, acc equals empty list? Pause. The default list is created once, when the function is defined, not on each call, so it persists and accumulates across calls. Call it twice and the second call sees the first call's data. The fix, default to none, then inside, if acc is none, acc equals a fresh list. Question 4, shallow versus deep copy. Pause. Copy.copy makes a shallow copy, a new outer object, but the nested objects are still shared. Copy.deep copy recursively copies everything, so nothing is shared. That difference bites hard with nested lists. Question 5, list versus tuple. A list is mutable, a tuple is immutable. And because it's immutable, a tuple is hashable, you can use it as a dictionary key or a set element, which a list can never do. Data structures, questions 6 through 10. Question 6, are Python dictionaries ordered? Pause and answer. Yes, since Python 3.7, dictionaries preserve insertion order, and that's a language guarantee, not an accident. It was a CPython implementation detail in 3.6, then made official in 3.7, so you can rely on it everywhere now. Question 7, why use a set instead of a list to check membership? Pause. Checking X in a set is O of 1 on average, because sets hash the element and jump straight to it. Checking X in a list is O of N, it scans every element until it finds a match. For lots of lookups, a set is dramatically faster. Question 8, list versus generator. Pause. A list is eager, it builds and holds every element in memory at once. A generator is lazy, it produces one value at a time, on demand, remembering where it left off, so it uses almost no memory and can even be infinite. The trade-off, a generator is single pass. Once consumed, it's empty. Question 9, are strings mutable? Pause. No, strings are immutable. Methods like upper or replace return a brand new string, they never change the original. Try to assign to s*0 and you get a type error. Question 10, what do star args and double star quargs do? Pause. Starargs collects any extra positional arguments into a tuple. Double starkwargs collects any extra keyword arguments into a dictionary. Together they let a function accept any number of arguments. Decorators and generators, questions 11 through 15. Question 11. What is a decorator? Pause and answer. A decorator is a function that takes another function and returns a new function that wraps it, adding behavior before or after, without touching the original's code. The @deco line above a def is just syntactic sugar, it means f equals deco of f. Question 12. What does functools.wraps do? Pause. When you wrap a function, the wrapper replaces the original's metadata, its name and docstring become the wrappers. Decorating your wrapper with @wraps of the original func copies that metadata back, so introspection and debugging still see the real function. Always use it in your decorators. Question 13. What's a generator, and what does yield do? Pause. A function with a yield and it returns a generator. Each time you ask for the next value, it runs until it hits yield, hands that value back, and freezes, local state and all, until you ask again. That's what makes it lazy and memory efficient. Question 14. What does next do, and what's stop iteration? Pause. Calling next on a generator advances it to the next yielded value. When there's nothing left, it raises stop iteration. A for loop calls next under the hood and catches stop iteration for you, that's how it knows to stop. Question 15. What's a closure, and what's the late binding gotcha? Pause. A closure is an inner function that captures variables from its enclosing scope and remembers them after the outer function returns. The gotcha, a closure captures the variable itself, not its value at the moment of definition. So if you build closures in a loop, they all end up seeing the loop variable's final value. We'll see exactly that trap in the last batch. The tricky ones, questions 16 through 20. Question 16. What is the GIL? Pause and answer. The global interpreter lock is, in CPython, a mutex that lets only one thread execute Python bytecode at a time. The consequence, threads don't speed up CPU-bound work, for that you want multiprocessing, which uses separate processes. But threads and async are still great for I/O bound work, where you're waiting on the network or disk. And note, it's a CPython implementation detail, and Python 3.13 ships an experimental free-threaded build that can turn it off. Question 17. Why does 0.1 plus 0.2 not equal 0.3? Pause. Because floats are stored in binary and most decimals can't be represented exactly, 0.1 plus 0.2 actually comes out as 0.3000 and a tiny bit. Never compare floats with double equals, use math.disclose. Question 18. What does a equals b equals empty list do? Pause. Chained assignment binds the one same list to both names. A and B are aliases for the identical object. Append to A and it shows up in B, because there's only one list. If you wanted two, you'd assign two separate empty lists. Question 19. The one everybody gets wrong. What does a list comprehension of lambda:(I), for I in range 3, return when you call each? Pause and really think. All three return 2. Every lambda closes over the same I, and by the time you call them the loop has finished with I equal to 2. That's the late binding closure from earlier. The fix, give each lambda a default argument, lambda I equals I:(I), which captures the current value right then. Question 20. What does if name equals main do? Pause. That name variable equals the string main only when the file is run directly. When the file is imported as a module, name is the module's name instead, so the guarded block doesn't run. It's how you separate script behavior from importable code. Quick cheat sheet, the one-line answer for each trap, so you can rattle them off. Arguments, Python is call by assignment, mutate in place is visible, rebinding is not. Is identity, double equals is value, use is only for none. Mutable default argument, created once, so default to none instead. Shallow copy shares nested objects, deep copy doesn't. Dicts keep insertion order since 3.7. Set membership is O of 1, list is O of n, generators are lazy and single pass, lists are eager. Strings are immutable. Star_args is a tuple, double Stark_wargs is a dict. A decorator is at deco equals f equals deco of f, and use functors wraps. Yield freezes and resumes, next raises stop iteration when done. The GL means threads for I/O, processes for CPU, in CPython. Floats, use mathis close. And the big one, closures and loops capture the variable, not the value, bind it with a default argument. If you can explain the why behind each of these, not just recite it, you're in great shape. That's 20. The pattern behind almost all of them is the same. Python hands around references to objects, and the traps come from forgetting whether you're mutating that shared object or making a new one, mutable defaults, aliasing, late binding closures, shallow copies. Get that one mental model and most of these stop being memorization. If any answer felt shaky, I've got a free written guide with all 20 questions, the code, and the exact outputs, at generalistprogrammer.com/tutorials/python-interview questions. And if you want a deeper set of graded practice to drill before an interview, there's the optional Python Power Pack in the description. Pause, re-answer the ones you missed out loud, and go get that offer. Good luck.